Hello and welcome to this brief tutorial on how to create a section view by hand. So here I am at a drafting table, but I'm actually not going to use the drafting table. I do have some drafting equipment here, different stuff. Actually, one of the things I prefer, I created an infield kit where I've got this little T-square. I don't know, I picked this up relatively cheap somewhere, not going to say where. But I'm actually going to go ahead and draw a quick section view by hand using a T-square and just a flat table. One of the first things you probably... Now, here's the thing about this section view, if you look at it, and I've done some calculations. You got this 8.5 by 11 piece of copy paper. And I've done some calculations here. And it comes up where to draw this section that I found on this 8.5 by 11, it's going to take up about 8.5 inches of the sheet here, of this blank sheet of paper. So the first thing I'd probably recommend, get your sheet of paper where it's on a table and use some masking tape to tape down the four corners of it. So I'm going to do that real quick. Let's see. And just make sure it remains, you gotta tape it real hard just so that it doesn't slide around. It can be kind of slick. So let me get this corner. I'm not sure if I'll need this corner, but might be sufficient like that. Now typically, if you were to draw by hand, you would actually begin by drawing a border of it and doing some rough calculations that way. Hey, that seems pretty stable there. So next, we're going to begin laying out this drawing. So again, I did some rough calculations, and it looks like this footer section here is 16 inches. You've got a 4-inch thick concrete slab. You got 6 by 6 wooden posts. So 6 by 6 wooden posts. And of course they have some cladding around it. There's an anchor post. You got to look closely. But there's an anchor post. Goes down into this concrete footer about a foot. What else do they have here? They've got a 1 by 8, so this is more or less like a fascia board. And then above that, they got 2 by 10 beams. And above that, well, they've got this hurricane strap. And they put the roof here, it's a pitch roof. It looks to be on an 8-12. So we're gonna go ahead and put all this together. And what it is, I just want to represent this wall system is a section view. And even though I'm not technically putting together a professional drawing, I want to give you the methodology here on how to do that. So pretty simple, pretty simple. Next, what I'm going to do is get some drafting equipment. Like I said, I found this T-square pretty cheap, so I'll probably rely on this. This will allow me to draw horizontal lines relatively easily. I do have some triangles in here, some drafting triangles. I've got some other ones in this kit I put together here. This kind of a kit I use in the field. First of all, we're going to draw this using the architect scale. So we're going to need this architect scale. And it's the only one that's all fractions. And the problem that I've been given here is 3/4 of an inch equals a foot scale. And I've already checked it. Like I said, I summed up all the different components here in this assembly, and it come up with about 8.5 inches. So it will fit on the 3/4 to the inch equals a foot scale. Now something I should kind of mention here, let me kind of zoom in. So this is the architect scale. Here's 3/4 of an inch equals a foot scale. And here's 0, here's 1, okay? But if you go back to the 0, behind here is a foot. So even though this is only 3/4 inch in reality, it represents a foot, and that's how we scale things down. If here's a 0 and here's a 1, now let's see, they divided it in half, they divided a foot in quarters, and then they divided that into eighths, and then they divided that into 16ths. So every 2 lines here is going to equal an inch. So I got 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4, 5 inch, 6 inch, 7 inch, 8 inch, etc. So every 2 of these marks is going to be a foot. In other words, each one of these marks is half the inch, half the inch. And let me kind of try to zoom in. See if I can get a good zoom. So I got to be careful and just notice how many increments they've divided up. So back to the drawing here. We're going to lay this out, and just to make things simple, like I said, I just want to get you familiar with the process of hand drafting. We're not trying to present these professionally. Just get, familiar with the process. So to do that, and like I said, typically what the drafter would do is I would draw a border first, and then I would put a block at the bottom, a title block, to be able to put my name, the project, the date, the scale, and any other details that I might need for that drawing. But I'm going to keep it simple here because, well, just to save time and energy, I'm going to lay this out using the scale. And here's another technique that seems to work relatively well, is that you can actually kind of find the center of your page by drawing an X. Now I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to kind of center things in the middle here and work my way up and down. So first things first, you're going to need a drafting pencil. So let's see. Oh, that's my pocket scale. I got a few drafting pencils here, and then I've got just a plain old mechanical pencil. I don't know, El Cheapo. So let's see what I got. This is a 0.9. Maybe hard to read, but there it is, a 0.9. That's a 0.9. Now what that is the lead thickness. That's how thick the lead is. I'm not going to use that pencil. This one is a 0.5. 0.5. This is a 0.5, I believe. Let me check. No, actually, this is a 0.7. 0.7. So I'm probably just going to stick with this, being that I just want to get you familiar with the process, that's all. So first things first, we need a place to begin. Technically, when you're drawing something, you get the idea in your mind, well, you got to kind of begin somewhere. We're going to begin down here with this footer. Now, as I already mentioned, this footer is 16 inches deep from the finished grade. It's kind of hard to see, but 16 inches deep. And if you look at the problem, it kind of extends this way, but it just kind of runs out. They don't really show you where it ends. It's very typical with a section view. It's a lot of times you use what they call a continuous break line, a break line. So you just put like a zigzag line, lets the reader know that this actually continues somewhere else, but you're just trying to narrow in on one little section of it. So that's an important concept. So we're going to begin by drawing this footer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the architect scale where it says 16. Where it says 16, this is a ruler, so I can use it like a ruler. And let's see, I'm just going to try to measure up from the bottom of the sheet. I'm going to make a mark at 1. Now you can't, in the lower left, but you can't just make 1 mark. You've got to make 2. But that's what this fancy T-square is for. I can kind of slide over to here, and all I want is a place to begin. Now notice when I draw this line, it's very, 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 very faint. In fact, I made that extra dark just so that the video captures it. But technically, if I was doing a drawing, I would use a hard, narrow lead and draw a very faint line. But that's going to give me a place to begin as far as deviating up the height of the sheet. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin to draw going upwards. So, as I previously stated, that footer comes vertically up, if you look at the problem, 16 inches. Now, here's the thing. We're drawing this at 3/4 of the inch equals a foot scale, which again is right here, says 3/4 on the left-hand side. So it's going to read left to right. Okay, if you go to the opposite side, it's going to be 3/8 equals a foot scale. So that's different. So I need to measure up 16 inches from this line I just drew from. And I kind of want to find a center. In fact, I'm not so much worried about the center. I'm just going to eyeball where I think the center is. That's all, just for the sake of this problem. So, but here again, I'm going to find that 3/4 of the inch equals a foot scale. I'm going to set my scale, if possible. Let's see if I can do it, actually. Yeah, I'm going to set it to 4 inch. Let me kind of zoom in here. Notice I set that to 4 inch at that line. So there's 4 inch, and then from the 0 to this 1, that's going to be 12. Well, 4 and 12 is going to be my 16. So I'm going to make one mark here, and then just kind of shift along to this other side. Make another mark. Oh, set it to the 4. Make sure to set that to the 4 inch. Okay. Let me get in there as close as I can get. There's the 4 inch, what I believe is the 4, and make a mark at the 1. So that's going to be 16 inches. It'll be 16 inches at this scale. I'm going to take my little T-square here, use the bottom edge of it, and draw a nice parallel line. Okay. Now here again, that's kind of a faint line, and that's okay. But what that's going to do is give me thickness. Next. This is where your triangle comes into play. So I'm going to use this metal triangle. It's made of aluminum. I've got plastic ones too. They're orange. They seem to work really well. I just want a place to begin across the length of here. So, and I can actually set this up against my table. If you don't have a drafting table with an edge, this has a metal edge right here. So I can actually, set it to that. But if you didn't have one, try to get it parallel and perpendicular with the edges of the sheet, respectively. But I just want a place to begin. So maybe about here I'm going to begin. And what I'm going to draw on this drawing is a vertical line to represent that footer. So straight up. I'm going to come straight up. Let's say, I don't know, right here. So that's going to be the height of my footer. Now, let me look back at the problem. The bottom of it is the same width as the height of it. So I need to take this line and measure 16 inches towards the right. That's where I'm going to use the scale once more. So I am going to find, where you at? The 3/4 of an inch equals a foot scale. And I'm going to measure. I'm going to set it to 4 here, behind the 0, and I make a mark at the 1. Let me try to zoom in as much as I can. So I set this to the 4, or keep in mind each of these is half an inch. So every 2 of them is a whole inch. And I make a mark at the 1, which is here. And then shift up a little ways, set it to 4, make a mark at the 1. Very good. Next, I'll take my triangle, and I'm going to draw this line very lightly. I'll probably go back and darken it in. But if you look at this problem, the footer and the slab are integral. They're combined. They're the same. And the slab, it might be hard to read on camera, but the slab is 4 inches thick, okay, concrete. So I need to take this upper line here and measure it down 4 inches with that 3/4 of the inch equals a foot scale. So here's my 3/4 of the inch equals a foot. Oh, I'm running out of room. Hold on. Always prepare by giving yourself enough room. So I'm going to make 2 marks here. Set this to the 0 and make a mark at the 4, and then shift over maybe to here. Set it to 0, make a mark at the 4. Okay, fair enough. Then I'm going to get my little T-square here, which works rather well for on-the-fly drawings as such. Mark it to here and draw a parallel line. Now what this did, and I need you to see, we've got an endpoint here and an endpoint here. We've also got an intersection here, here, and this kind of runs out. So, but what I have is I have lines to connect, and I need a place to terminate this. Now this is where it kind of gets arbitrary, okay? I'm going to draw a little zigzag line, okay, right through here. And what that symbol, it's a symbol for a continuous break, as I previously stated. What that means, what it implies to the reader, is that this construct travels on. So let me just kind of draw how I usually draw these. I'm going to come over a little ways, and I'm just going to kind of draw to here, and then draw to here, and then maybe go back and just put a little zigzag. That's all. That's fine. If you just want to freehand that, that's fine. So that's that continuous break line. That lets the reader know it travels on. Next, what I can do is I can darken in some lines here. So the bottom of the footer, darken that in. The bottom of the slab, darken that in. Top of the slab, darken that in. Then I can go back with my triangle and darken in that inside edge of the concrete slab, kind of like such. Now, anytime you draw concrete in a section view, you're going to produce a pattern. Typically, they make templates, okay? I don't have any. I'm not going to require anybody to do that. And as I said, this is kind of a brief illustration how to construct these by hand. I'm not trying to be perfect on this drawing, and I wouldn't expect anybody else to be, unless we were in a professional field getting paid for this stuff. But that would be your footer. So let me take a little break and get ready for the rest. Okay, I kind of want to bring this out to you. In this design, they have a 1x12 kick plate at the bottom. This column goes up to this beam. At the top, they have a 1x8. So you got a 1x8 up top as a fascia board. A 1x12 on the bottom is some type of kick plate. Okay, but around this 6x6 post, they have some type of veneer. We don't know the sizes of these, so I'm not really going to worry about them. But if you took one, because this is a 1x12, and let's say they've got some type of veneer, let's say that's another 1 inch, okay, that's going to be 2 inches. And then if you look closely at the problem, they stayed away from the very edge of that footer. That's kind of hard to see. Let me get that center better. They stayed away from that very edge. I don't know, maybe an inch. We don't really know. So we're going to say 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch. So I'm going to start my beam about 3 inches away from the edge of this footer. So here again, we're going to get the architect scale. The 3/4 of the inch equals a foot scale. I'm going to set the 0 to the edge of the footer and count over 3 inches. 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch. It's going to be a little bit longer line segment, okay? Now, here's the trick today. I need a vertical line that remains parallel with the left edge. So, I'm going to go back to the 16 scale to do this. Go back to the 16 scale, which acts like a ruler. And I'm going to measure from the edge of that sheet where that lands. And it just so happened for me to land at 3 1/8. So I'm going to make another mark somewhere up here at 3 1/8. Because I really want to remain vertical when I draw this line. Now I do got other triangles here. Let me grab one. I've got this triangle I can use. It's a little longer than that metal one I was using. So I'm going to shift my work out of the way. Now let's just see let's, you know, just for the sake of complacency, is my mark right? Yeah, it's just about right. So I'm going to draw a very light line coming up. Very light for right now. Let's look back at the problem. From the top of the slab to the top of this beam is 8 foot, okay? 8 foot. It's hard to see, but it's over here. 8 foot at the top of the beam. So we're going to find that height real quick. Go to the 3/4 of the inch equals a foot scale. Where are we at? There it is. And I'm going to set the top of the slab to 0. And then look for 8, which is here, and make a mark. Just a very light mark. And then shift over a little bit. 0. Top of slab. 8. Okay. This is where I'm going to get my T-square and make a very light line. It's going to be the top of that beam, okay? Top of that beam. It's hard to see, but from the top of this slab to this line here is 8 foot. Now we're going to work that beam downward. Now let me pause this. I got to put my phone on charge.